welcome to the first of a series of videos that we're going to look at setting up a sewer catchment within our map sewer application. This is for predicting flows in pumping stations within the wastewater network. So before we go into the detail, I'm just going to quickly look at the two applications we're going to use. So the first is our main user interface. So this is the same interface we use for our map rain application, which our other videos are available for. Except this time we're logged in as administrator, right? So we're logged in here as an administrator into a map sewer demo account. So this is running on one of our demonstrations servers. So the second application we're going to look at is our map client. So this is our configuration application where we can look at data, but it's not defined, it's not really meant as a UI as such, but you can look at data and extract data from the UI. So we'll look at the configuration. So the first thing to see is that in this geometry types we've got nothing showing at the moment, and what we're going to be doing is adding data into this geometry types through the UI and then interacting with the data. So the first thing we're going to do is looking at setting up some subcatchments. So these are the polygons based around each pumping station. So these are polygon based data sets. So what we would normally expect is that these would be loaded in from some sort of GIS application. We use QGIS. So these are the polygon data points down here. This is saved as a simple KML type file, which is a straightforward output from most GIS applications, and we have three main fields. They are the population, the permeable area and the impermeable area. So each of these 6 subcatchments that we're going to create, they've got a name and they've got just an estimated population, impermeable area and permeable area. So that's our subcatchment file. Now we're going to add this in an area of Derby. Now I have to stress there is nothing this is all fictional data in Derby, so we've just taken some catchments and assigned some values to it, so there's all fictional data. So if I go down to our admin tools, we can select here from the geometries that we want. We've got a range of geometries that we can create. We're going to add a sewer subcatchment, and I'm going to import the file which we just looked at, which is our rain sewer demo file. So it's now loading, and we get an alert to say that that's been loaded, which is great. And so if we now go into refresh our geometries, we can see we've got our sewer subcatchments. And here are the 6 subcatchments that we have running, set up, and we can go and look at those in a minute. And actually, as they're now set up, if we go into one, these are all the calculations that we are looking to calculate, and we are processing around about a year of historic rainfall data. So MAP is now creating these on the fly, and they'll start getting populated over a series of time. So we'll come back to those in a minute. So what we can do now is we can just draw a rectangle around here, go into show, and we can get these catchments. So here are the actual catchments that we've just created. I'll just get rid of that next border, and if we click on each one, we can see some of the parameters that are set up here as default parameters. So if we just go back into the UI, I'm not sure if these would have started to populate. It takes a while, obviously, to be able to populate as many and as much data as this. So we can see that we've now started to populate data, and we can click on some of the individual graphs and we can see the various parameters being calculated. So if these little graphs will refresh in a minute. So if I just go in and choose a different subcatchment, we can start to see all the calculations as they start being calculated, and each one will start to create and show that it's all been created, all the calculations are processing. So very quickly, we've got APIs. We've got the API-E, which is a 5-minute API calculation, average rainfall, cumulative rainfall. This is the rainfall that we are using to process within MAP and is dependent upon the characteristics of the catchment details, mainly this minimum intensity, initial loss calculations and termination periods. So I'm not going to go into the detail of what we're delivering in here, but at this moment in time, but just to say that this is where we've calculated we've created the subcatchments. They're all now calculating, and most of them are calculating all the permeable runoffs and the permeable flows. What I will do now is just to show you how we can change some of the main characteristics of the subcatchments. So here we've got a per capita consumption. I'm just going to change that to 120 litres per person per day, and if I check that button at the top and change that parameter, it'll now change automatically for every other subcatchment that's being shown. So that's a generic catchment, a generic change to the catchments. So I think hopefully that gives you a quick overview of how we can create subcatchments, and in the next videos we'll look at adding pumping stations and sewer nodes and joining all of the geometries together. Thank you for your time.